to join in.
Right.
All right, hi everybody. Welcome to this webinar with Techstars founders of Nigerian Origin to talk about their experience going to Techstars and also about fundraising. We had quite a number of people sign up, but we just have 7, so we'll give a few minutes for a few more people to join in. But our panelists are here anyway, so we're ready to go. This is being recorded and it's also on demand, so even if people sign in or later on, they can watch the videos and it will also be sent by email afterwards as well. So yeah, we'll just give it a few minutes so we have a few more people coming in and then we'll get started. Okay, the room is filling up. We're waiting on one more panelist actually. So Olu as well should join us. But good to see that the room is filling up, even though we only put word out for this earlier in the week and that there's been quite a bit of interest. So that's always encouraging. All right, thanks so much, Kichuku. Actually, that's a great idea. And so people that are attending, it'd be great to, if you could just in the chat box, introduce yourself, tell us where you're watching from and a little bit about what you do. You never know, somebody else in here might reach out for whatever reason. So it's always good to pitch your work. So please, in the comments, just tell us, where you're from, what you're doing, as an initial introduction. So thanks so much, Ikechukwu, for starting that from the Good Drone Company Limited. Awesome. So just give it one more minute, and then we'll get going. And we pray the internet gods will smile upon us today, that all our networks go well. Mauricio is the only one that isn't shaking. Okay, welcome Chimezie. So Chimezie is Doctorate Healthcare Services and a total healthcare platform, interesting, from Ebonyi State. I would never have guessed there was much startup activity happening in Abakaliki, but there you go. Okay, awesome. We've got 23 people in there. It's 4 minutes past, so let's get started. We're recording it anyway, so people can always refer to this later on. Okay. Awesome. So Neto is my name. I'm founder and CEO of Wella Health. I went through the Techstars program, Techstars Impact program, some 2 years ago, so 2019, out in Austin, Texas. It was such a great experience. And since I've noticed a lot more Nigerian companies go to the program. And so as we're looking through the current cycle, there are lots of Techstars programs opened. And I thought, it'd be a great idea to get, lots of different, founders of Nigerian origin who've been to the Techstars program to talk about their experience and encourage other, founders like us to, take the leap to apply and to actually, go through it. And so I'm delighted to have, a couple more Techstars founders on this webinar today to speak about their experience and share some insights. So I will introduce them, and then they can, have a minute to introduce themselves, I guess, and talk about their own business for a little bit, and then we'll then go into the conversation. It's meant to be informal and relaxed, so feel free to pipe in at any point along the way, anybody on the panel, and then we'll do a formal Q&A at the end of the kind of initial chat back and forth. So first up is Maurice. So Maurice is the co-founder of Simplify. So Maurice, I'll let you introduce yourself and your work.
Yeah, no, thank you, Payman. So Mauricio Wunze, CEO and co-founder of Simplify. We're based in London. We did Techstars Berlin this year. And what we do with Simplify is that we're solving really two problems with one solution. So we enable Nigerians in the diaspora to support their families back home without sending money by enabling them to access low interest loans in Nigeria instead. So, we believe that the best way to reduce the costs of sending money back home is by eliminating the need to have to send it at all. And doing that by empowering people, communities back home to be able to make money on their own through credit for productive uses. So we can break this cycle of constantly asking and sending money. So I'm happy to be on the panel with everyone else, and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
I think network is out. It's network.
I can go next. Yeah, so my name is Olu Ajala, based in Birmingham, Alabama, and I have a strong team in Lagos and Abuja as well. And what we do at Ashipa Electric is we developing software solution to help microgrid developers improve the process of developing, as well as how they manage their microgrids. And in so doing, we'll continue to optimize the cost of building and managing microgrids, which will increase energy access in rural areas and also optimize and increase energy access in urban areas as well. So that's what we do at Ashipa.
All right, I think I'll go next. And so my name is Adewale Iso. I'm the co-founder and CEO of TalentQL. What we do at TalentQL is we started with the simple idea of decentralizing and democratizing opportunity for talent in Africa and also to another emerging markets. So for us now, we just want everyone to be able to have access to opportunity, no matter where you are. Your location shouldn't be a challenge or it shouldn't be a disadvantage to you. And that's what we're doing. Right now, we're building an AI system that helps companies to get talent, vetted talent within 48 hours. And we're trying to reduce what it takes to recruit a talent by 95%. Why 95%? That's what our AI system is building. Right now, we focus on tech talent, on developers, but very soon we are looking beyond that. We do talent in general. We are looking to do talent in general, but we realize that developers, technical talents are the hardest to get. So why not start from the hardest part of it? So we can now work down. And we currently serve clients in the US, in Europe, and Dubai, and Nigeria, Kenya. So that's what we do. And right now, we were part of Techstars Toronto this year. We were part of it, and we were virtual. It happened virtual because of COVID situation. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thanks so much, Adewale. Sorry, I dropped off. So if I ever drop off again, feel free to just carry on the conversation without me. So Olu, you're up next. Please, tell us about yourself and your work.
We've
He has introduced himself.
Oh, see, I'm behind. Okay, thanks. See, if I do drop off,
carried on,
guys, to carry on. Awesome. That's the spirit. Excellent. Okay, so let's start from Olu then, since I didn't hear your introduction. Could you then just tell us? Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Could you tell us how you heard about the Techstars and like what really made you apply?
I can go first. On my end, I've been in Birmingham, Alabama for some time. And I've always been passionate about electrification, whether it's rural access or just increasing access to electricity in general across Africa. And that's really motivated me heavily on all the things that I've done throughout my career. And I never miss an opportunity to tell people that if you were willing to listen, I would tear your hairs off about my passion for energy. And for me, just telling a lot of people about that information, it got me to get someone who had heard about the stories just mentioned to me that, hey, Texas is actually coming to Alabama for the first time. And for me, that's how I heard about Techstars, Alabama. I've known about Techstars, and of course, Alabama is an electric utility, and just that um, merging was pretty much was a major happening here in Alabama that made me want to be a part of Techstars. Now, going through the process of applying for Techstars, I had a discussion with the MD here at the Texas, Alabama, and from there, he mentioned and basically told him the story as well. And he said, "Hey, you should definitely apply for this program." And that's how the process started for me. So I would love to hear how it happened for the rest of you.
Yeah, awesome, Olu. And so I had a similar experience in that I had a conversation with an MD as well. Was that the case for you, Adewale? Did you speak to somebody before you actually applied?
So for me, our case is totally different. Reason being, like during my tech point days, so the MD of my MD Sunil, so he followed me on LinkedIn. And he used tech point to know what's going on in Africa. So especially in startup, and he later told me that even some of the most of his investments in Africa, startup investment, he learned them through my LinkedIn, through TechPoint. So we've been connected. We chatted sometime like that when I wanted to go for a conference, I think, in Web Summit or stuff. So we didn't apply. So they reach out to us. So he reached out to us when we announced, like, oh, when I stepped down from TechPoint, like, oh, I'm trying to do something new. I'm stepping down as CEO. And so he reached out. Then also he talked to a lot of startups, because right now, one thing you should know is they are looking for good startup as well. And Techstars invest in founders. So they are looking for founders with credibility. They are looking for founders that are ready to build great. They're looking for founders that are solid. So he reached out to a lot of people from their portfolio, a lot of Nigeria, and I think everyone was just saying, "Oh my God, yes, they know Wale, this." So and they just sent us a short form to just fill some details. So I didn't have a lot of, oh, this is the information, and we never applied for any program before. So that was just the one. I actually didn't want to take it. So I didn't want to go. It was Oyeka, which is the founder of Farm Crowdy and also Plenty Worker, that actually convinced me that, dude, you have to go. You should go. Then because last at then we've raised some pre-seed and this thing. So you have to go. And I think that was one of the best thing or the best thing that happened to me and to my company. And so it was really a good experience. And also, I always tell people now, which is especially, so I have some founders that I'm privileged to work with that are just kind of starting their business in different places. And I try to tell them, like, know how to communicate. You don't know who is listening. You don't know who you're connected with. You don't, someone will just like your tweet and like it to someone else's timeline. You understand? Because there are a lot of scouts, there are a lot of people looking for opportunity, looking for what. So don't be quiet about what you're building. Know the right information to send. I use LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot. I love LinkedIn. I think is my the most used social media now for me. So and that's opportunity. So a lot of opportunities. I even got a lot of investor really reach out, which is some things we'll talk later as well. You understand? So we didn't apply. So this is how it happened for us. Some of you as well, you will be shocked. Like already they are actually they are reaching out to them. And for our cohorts, they send the list. Like, what do you think? We need some more stuff. Because right now, some of these programs are coming to get startup in Africa. because the people that have gone through the program are doing well. So they are now coming to Africa, to Nigeria to look. So they also asked recently,
Absolutely.
the MD asked like, oh, how many you guys should recommend startups, some of these things. And we can only see what we think and what we see.
Yeah.
So communication is very key as a startup founder.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Odewale. I can relate to that. You kind of have to be a little noisy, right, to rise above a lot of the things that are out there. And so don't be quiet is what I hear you say, and reach out and build a great network. Awesome. Maurice, what was your experience like?
Yeah, so we've known about Techstars for a while, and we looked at applying for the program. And so I'm originally from the US, and so my inclination was to try to do Techstars New York, since we're in the fintech space. And I signed up for one of the office hours. I talked to someone in the program office at Techstars, and they recommended that we reach out to the MD of Techstars Berlin, because they just had their first company from Africa go through the program, and I guess they were actively looking to bring in another African-focused company. So we had a meeting with the MD, and the MD happened to have a relationship with a company that we were partnering with, and that kind of started the path for us to end up joining the Berlin program.
Awesome. I think that fits in with the theme of having conversations, with MDs or people in the program even before you apply. Would that be fair to say that we all did that, really, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I would say it's almost imperative, right, to have a conversation with an MD of a program. If it's so, if they don't, if you don't get accepted, or if they see maybe not their program, but they know that there's an MD at this program that's really keen on Nigerian startups, they can make that introduction for you. But you really need to talk to someone in the program before you apply.
Awesome. So let's look at the features of the application itself. Do you recall, or did you get feedback on what stood out in your application? Now, this doesn't apply to you, Adewale, so maybe we'll talk to Olu first and then Maurice and see what actually stood out in the application.
Yeah, Adewale told us all of that already. As far as what stood out in my application, it was more about the story, the passion for. It was more about the mission, actually. Going for energy, reducing energy deficit, and not just about the mission, the experience in that particular sector, and how long I've been working in that sector to try to understand how to solve that problem, and still working towards it. I think that's one thing that stood out in my application.
Yeah. So I would definitely echo that. I think the story is really important, and I think showing some level of validation or traction, right, and showing it in a thoughtful way. So if it's whether you're at ideation stage, or whether you actually are generating revenue, you want to demonstrate that you've been thoughtful about how you validate that this is a scalable idea. I think the also important thing is, Techstars, they're still tech investors at the end of the day, so they want to see the ability to scale and get outsized returns in whatever business you're doing. So really understanding or really conveying what the addressable market is. They want to see that, even if you're focused on Nigeria is a huge market, or if you're focused on Africa or globally, like there's a path to get your business scaled in a significant way and a large addressable market. So you definitely want to paint the bigger picture of what you're trying to solve. If you're trying to do something that's very niche and only relevant to a couple of thousand users, or a couple tens of thousands of users, that's probably not going to resonate with them. So you have to really be thoughtful in conveying, like, here's how this can transform a really large ecosystem.
Yeah, so totally agree with you all. And I've distilled it to three things actually, and I call it the three T's of getting the Techstars. So one is team, the second is TAM, and the third is traction. So you need to have a great team, you have to have a big TAM, so total addressable market, and finally you need really good traction. So I think if you can nail those three things, you stand a good chance. Awesome. Adewale, did you want to comment on that, or perhaps go into speaking about the actual program itself, like what the program was like for you once you got in?
So I mean, for me, one thing I learned during that time is they invest in founders in the team. So I think they bet a lot on the team. Like, okay, what are the team like? Because when we were going, to be honest with you, we didn't have traction. I mean, even when we were going, I remember, like, even when we did our pre-seed, we didn't have any traction. I didn't have pitch deck. I didn't have anything. But a lot of people were betting, and that's why they bet. So they bet on us because they know it's me. And also my co-founders, we understand the market. We have credible source. So the team, they bet on the team. So, and they understand the problem we are trying to solve, which is the TAM, which is the total addressable market. So, but I always think at the early stage is always betting on the team, because you might go into Techstars and you will come out with a different solution, different product entirely as well. So, but they want to know, like, is this a team that can build something that will worth $1 billion? Is it a team that can build something that will scale? That's just.
Absolutely, I'd love to add a little bit to that. Yes, so I talked about one of the key things, or the key differentiator. One, just talk about the team. Team is very important, and also having a strong team that has at least a few of them have experience in that particular area of the problem that you're solving, and also have the diversity of, well, a team that has experience in diversity of functions in order to make the company operate and make the startup operate through, because there's going to be a lot of challenging times. Now, the background and passion for what you're doing will determine how long that startup team will persevere to walk through all of the challenges that is inevitable in a startup. So they want to see a strong team. They want to see a team that has experience in the area, diversity of skill set, and yeah. So that's what I was add to that. So thanks, Adewale. Nito, are you there?
Hello, Nito. Awesome.
Nito's maybe network.
Well, I guess let's continue the direction of of what stood out.
Yeah, I think so. We talk about our experience during the program. So I can actually, Olu, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience, and where did you do your program again?
It was in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay. Was it virtual or in person? In person. Okay.
I guess that was the only in-person program last year.
So
just about the experience. Well, I'll talk about 4 key things that those who go through a Techstars program should at least capitalize on. The first one is mentorship. There's a ton of mentors that will guide you in different things that you need to work through in the program. As Adewale mentioned, you may go in the program and come out with a different product completely, but that's because you're listening attentively and working with the mentors who might have done a lot of what you're trying to do in different areas, in different ways, and definitely take in that information. If it works for you, great. If not, it would even sharpen what you're already doing. So mentorship. The second one will be just network. Take that advantage to network with a lot of entities, and going into the program, that it comes with preparing for the program. Know the where the program is, know what you can get out of the program, or at least have an idea, and start working towards the mentors that you want to work with closely, And even if they're not the ones selected to work directly with you, still engage them outside of your dedicated mentor so you can try to get into the network that you need to get to move your startup forward. And there's another thing. Of course, there's the fund that you get that will help you kickstart a lot of things. And finally, ensure that you build strong relationships, strong bond with your cohorts. They are a community that you essentially work with for 13 weeks. And then beyond that, they are people that you can talk to and work with as they're going through the same challenges that you're going to face. So those are 4 key things that I'll touch on.
I'll just ask a follow-up question on that. You raised a great point about the importance of mentorship and the Mentor Madness part of the program, which Adewale, you can expound on a little bit. But Oling, your experience doing your program in the US and in Birmingham, but being an Africa focused company, how did you navigate, I guess, the importance of finding mentors that understand your market and the problem you're trying to solve? Was that ever an issue?
So I would say first that Ashipa Electric is working both in the U.S. and in Nigeria. And,
okay.
So it's solving problems that is global. Distributed energy resources is pretty much changing the electric power sector all over the world, and we are working. But to your point, as of last year, we had a primary focus on building projects in Nigeria, and then begin developing our software. And a lot of our team members are in Nigeria. So that is a good point as to getting mentors who are familiar with Nigerian market, given that we were in Birmingham, Alabama. But we worked on the things that were more pertinent to the US market during those discussions. Also try to network with mentors who had some idea about the type of project, because in a way they're similar globally. But then for the things that we needed access to mentors in Nigeria, we just engage with them, whether through Techstars in different areas, or engage with just engage with mentors in Nigeria separate from Techstars.
I'll let you go.
Okay.
What's your experience and maybe a little more insight into Mentor Madness?
So, so I remember when we started, and they were telling us to prepare our mind for Mentor Madness. We're just like, oh, how tough can it be? And it's a virtual. We did a virtual program. Mentor Madness. We spoke to 80 mentors in 3 weeks, which means from morning to evening. I remember whenever I'm done with the meeting, I feel like I'm always tired, always exhausted. And also I feel sometimes you just feel like, what the heck are you doing with your life? Like, hey, does this make sense? Because these are mentors, these are investors, different business leaders that have seen a lot of stuff globally. And they change the way you see things. So when we were just a Nigerian company, because when I started Talentio, oh, let's do something in Ife for just Nigerians, for people from OAU, from people from universities. Then we got to Techstars, and they convinced us. I mean, they let us know that they don't invest in something like small. You have to conquer the world. Nigeria is cool, Africa is cool, but can you conquer the world? And now you're seeing pattern, not just in Nigeria, in Africa, and also in other parts of the world. So they changed the way I see the world. They changed the way I see business. I remember we moved from we're solving Nigerian problems to solving Africa and emerging markets. And we started speaking with some people in different markets. I started inquiring with people in the Asian market, in the South American market, in Brazil. So you have access to some of these things. So you have to go with a lot of be open-minded, but also, speaking with 80 people, different people have a lot of opinion. They have to tell you that not everything you think, but they will shape your mind. So which is one thing. So the Mentor Madness was so good. but it was tough. It was tough because you will come. Some people will, after you pitch, you will see it in some people's face that what you just drop is just, it's just a mess. It's just shit. Like people, what are you doing? And so, for example, let me take an example. Before we left, we were thinking, oh yeah, this is our competitor. This is our competition. But by the time we're done with my Mentor Madness, I realized there was a country called Ukraine, which was my major competition because all the universities there, they're delivering graduates that don't have capacity to deliver. So it just changed your mindset, which is good. Then the second, your cohort, the other people there, they're very important. That network you need to use. So the system we're building now, our AI system that is going to be powered. There was one of the founder in the program that is the top AI guy in Silicon Valley that also work with Intel, some of these stuff, and is happy to help us. You understand? Sometimes when you have challenges, speaking with your other cohorts really helps you. There's some people I just go to me that we just talk. Then you have a family that get your back because whatever you are facing, you see other people facing it. And also when it comes to traction, you see like, okay, you are going through the same thing. I mean, you'll be in Nigeria and someone in Vietnam, you guys are going through the same challenges. So you see that network. So those are some of the things that are that really helped us. Then also access to investors. There are investors that built their network, that built their wealth by trusting Techstars. And Techstars is giving you access to those. So some people are saying, if you can vet them, because when you're going through Techstars, the due diligence is rigorous. You do the background check on the founders, do everything. So they trust those due diligence. And when you on your pitch demo day, you just see a lot of investors getting out to you, and you see a lot of investors. You know, you see investors that are happy to say, "Oh, we write between 1 million to 10 million checks. This is our industry." You're overwhelmed with this type of opportunity. So that's one important thing. And for me, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't want to go. I didn't want to take the Techstars offer. Like, oh, why should I go? But the key thing that helped us, I'm so happy because I didn't know what I would have been doing by now if I didn't take that opportunity. Because now we're a global company, not just incorporated in US, we incorporated in Canada, we do some other incorporation, and also with us, you understand, there's opportunity for you to have your residency somewhere else. Some of those things that just come with the trust that Techstars have built over the year. And you as a founder, I can bet you are not the same founder that will enter the program. You're not the same founder that will enter. It's not the same founder that enters that will come out. You will come out as a different person entirely, except something is wrong somewhere. So I think you two, you should go as well, Maureen. You need to share your experience with us.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I mean, COVID changed a lot of things, right? And so, we're actually looking forward to spend time in Berlin. The previous African fintech company that went through the Berlin program, one of the biggest advantages, or I guess positive outcomes they got from the experience, was the relationships they were able to build with their cohort members, et cetera. And part of that was being able to be in Berlin in person with the rest of the founders. And so we were looking forward to that as well. And then COVID happened and became clear that there was going to be a completely virtual program. I think that had its drawbacks, but it also had its benefits. We were still running a business, and I needed to be in Nigeria at that time. So I was able to do the program while in Lagos. At the same time, my partner was going through, his wife was pregnant. And so, it would have been really difficult for him to have to spend time in Berlin. So from a logistics standpoint, the virtual program actually was beneficial. The Mentor Madness experience, that everyone's talked about, I thought the biggest benefit from that was that you're basically pitching back to back to 80, 90 investors nonstop, you're forced to learn how to tell your story, right? You can, I forgot who mentioned it, but like you can look at at one of the potential the mentors' faces and tell if your story is resonated or not, right? While you're giving it to them. And so the benefit for the initial benefit I would say that we got from the program was really around fine-tuning and honing our story in a way that resonated with a diverse set of audiences, because you're going to be speaking to people that, or you may be speaking to people that don't understand anything about Nigeria, the users, the problems. I have no idea what problem you're trying to solve, and you have to keep that in mind, even with your application. You're talking to people that have no context of the problem you're trying to solve. So you have to learn how to tell your story and explain the problem in a way that they can understand it, right? And understand the impact and scale of what you're trying to solve. And so we were immediately forced to have to figure out how to do that, especially since we were trying to do something that was novel and hadn't been done before. So there were a lot of different moving parts that we had to figure out how to piece together to tell a coherent story that resonated in a short period of time. And so that was a very valuable exercise that we went through with Techstars. I think the rest of the program, I would say it's kind of a mixed bag. Being virtual, I think it made it a little challenging to go through all the different seminars and different topics that they try to address. And so I think that could have been managed a little better, but I think everyone was dealing with this first time fully virtual experience. So we were basically the guinea pigs for like, how do we run a virtual program, at least for the Techstars program. I'll echo what everyone said about relationships and providing validation. We've talked to investors that, when they're saying, okay, do you check our criteria? Do you check our criteria? One of the criteria that we check is that we went through a world-renowned, recognized accelerator program, right? So that's really a powerful initial screen for a lot of investors that you get from participating in the Techstars program. So I guess I'll jump into this question: expectations versus outcomes. What did you go into Techstars expecting to get from the program, and did it meet your expectations?
For me, I'll say number one thing I was going to Texas for was for network, and it exceeded my expectations. With regards, especially regards the mentor madness, I feel like I have access to as many the mentors that we went through that I engaged with. Of course, you won't be able to build a relationship with every single one of them, but the target ones, I'm able to engage with them. And if you feel like there's some additional mentors that you want to engage with, and people in their network, once you build a relationship with them, it is easy to get access to them. So I think for me, network is the number one thing, and it exceeded my expectation.
So for me, I didn't have an expectation, to be honest, and I just went with an open mind, like, oh, what's this going to be? And because I'm coming from a bootstrap background, my previous company more like bootstrapped it, but now that you are in a venture-backed startup, this is the type of program you need, because they are just there introducing you every day, connecting you every time to a lot of opportunity you need. And there's something I really want to touch on, which is, when they came to me, I was looking at our valuation compared to the valuation that would come in, and I'm so grateful. Like, I have founders that walk me through this, which is like Onyeka. Because the moment, no matter the valuation you see as a startup in Nigeria, you don't have too much support system. especially when you're a founder that you live in the country and you live on the continent. You don't have too much support system. So don't be too rigid with your valuation. Just go. You understand? Because even if you take the next round, which is like 100K, your valuation is going to be 300 million. You understand? Immediately. So no matter what it is, but all I'm saying is, so I was a bit rigid, like, oh no, my valuation, I don't want to lower my valuation. Everything happens so fast. But the network you will get, the access you will get. Also, just adding that, oh, we're a Techstar backed program on your status alone. There are some companies that want to work with you. Then you also belong to a very larger network. Like some companies will reach out to you just because you're in Texas, just because you are in Techstar program. So you should just know, like, the most important thing is just be part of the program, and don't be too rigid. Just know, like, it's a support system. You get a lot of things from this network and you're able to grow. So for the expectation, we're able to come out with mentors, we're able to even come out with people that can help us with technical skills, and we're able to come out with a lot of people, including Tayo. Even when we were doing our seed round, yeah, fundraising, you're able to reach out to some founders from the program, like, oh, I would like you to introduce me to investors in your network. And they just see it as a family. Like, oh, you're a Techstar family. Oh, that's good. You understand? They do the introduction, and that really goes a long than any other thing.
That's great. Thank you so much, Adewale, and thanks, guys. I hope you guys can hear me. My network has been so bad. But I think I switched networks, so let's hope this stays. But you guys have been awesome carrying this conversation. I picked a number of things from it, and I can testify to the power of the Techstars network. And we're coming towards the end, so it'd be great to just get sort of final words from each of you about what your, the advice you leave with everybody that's watching in, and then we can then.
Yes, Morris, why don't you kick us off on this one?
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I say just to summarize my advice, you really need to talk to someone in the program before you apply. Just applying cold will probably not be enough to get you in the program. Two, make sure that the story you're telling is solving a really big problem and is going to change the lives of millions of people. And so that story needs to be very clear and concise in your application. So, think big. Don't try to solve a problem for your city. Don't even try to solve a problem for your country. Try to solve a problem for the world. And passion. When you get your interview, you have to, they, as Wally mentioned, like, they invest in founders, so they really need to see the passion. And Olu said that, that passion is what what gets you through what's going to be a very painful journey. So make sure you don't hide how passionate you are about what you're trying to build and the problem you're trying to solve, and make it personal, right? That usually resonates with people, right? If you're trying to solve a problem that you've experienced firsthand, your community, your family has experienced firsthand, and there are millions of people like that experiencing it too, that really resonates with people.
Okay. Just so let me add, just to build on that. One thing is, don't solve problem that can scale. Don't think of a problem that, it's good to solve. I always tell people it's good to be an SME, just to solve other people's problem. But when you're going to a venture-backed program, venture-backed this thing, you need to scale, like, how are you going to conquer the world? And how are you going to make it a repeat business? So put it at the back of your mind, even though when you are pitching, currently that is not what you're doing. You're not getting to that now. But let them know, like, this is where you're going. You understand? this is the system you're going, and this is how you're going to go there. I see a lot of people trying to, especially when you're coming from Nigeria, that all you know is just result. Like you have to show people result first, because when you're coming, you have to say, oh, I do this month or month. But you have to sell the future. They back some startups that don't even have a product in the market, just R&D and some of these things. But you just need to say, this is the future we're trying to solve, and this is how many people want to solve that problem for. Would it be enough for Nigerians? Just can I scale through other African countries? And also, can I look beyond other African countries? Can I go to some emerging markets? Will there be a problem that works there? And also, Nigeria is enough market as well. It's 200 million people. So if you have something that maybe 1% of that population or 2% of that population will use, that's actually a big number. So think of the future when applying, when you put in your application first. And your team, just know how to sell your team. Interesting story. So during my program, there's a lady I met, one of the business associates at Techstars. I eventually convinced her after the program, so she joined our company working with me. And some of the things, so when she was helping me with my pitch, when we were defining my pitch, I understand how to sell, how to sell people, because you need to just say, you need to understand how to sell yourself, because these people, they've not met you before, or someone else, they don't know anything about you. You need to know, like, this is it. And also when you are pitching, so for example, when you're saying, before TechPoint, I used to say, oh, TechPoint is just TechPoint. But when I got to Text, I realized, like, when you're telling people, you say, oh, TechPoint is like TechCrunch of Africa. Make a reference to something that they are familiar with, or something that is global enough that they understand. So you can sell that, because if you're trying to get them to understand that, you will not be successful. But when you're connecting it, they can easily connect, like, oh, this looks like a Stripe. You understand? This is Stripe for people, maybe in Kigali, for Rwanda, maybe in Kenya, or maybe just Nigeria, whatever it is. So that's it for me. Thank you.
One thing I'll quickly add to that is a great way to frame the scope of what you're solving, of the problem you're solving, but providing some context is what they taught us in Techstars with it, which is we're solving this global problem or this Africa problem, starting with Nigeria. Right. So people don't think, okay, you're trying to do too much. It's like, this is a massive problem everywhere, but we're starting to do it in Nigeria.
That's awesome. Let me just pretty much echo what you said, summarize and add just one additional piece. What I've heard so far and what we've talked about so far, have a strong team, have diversity of skill sets within that team, and show traction. One additional thing, which is very important for Techstars, is give first. Always give. If you continue to give, you have a high chance of receiving as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. I hope you all can hear me. But I think that's a great way to summarize that. That's a give first mantra of Techstars. So thanks so much, Olu, Adewale, and Maurice. There's a couple of questions. Two of them were actually related to fundraising, which is the next panel we're going to have. But there's one question related to this, and that was around whether you think the virtual process is any different from in-person. I did an in-person program, so I can't even comment on it. What was your experience like in a virtual program?
Well, so
sorry. Maureen, go first.
I don't know the inner workings of the Techstars process, but application process. But I will say that the fact that it's virtual probably means that they're going to be open to bringing on more companies in Africa and in Nigeria, especially Nigeria is kind of hot right now. So my guess is that that just increases the chances of more African startups getting into the program. The virtual experience honestly was mixed. We were the first for the program I did, we were the first to go through it. So they were still working out a lot of kinks on like how to deliver different aspects of the program. I thought there was some efficiency from doing it virtual versus having to go somewhere and sit there every day. But the one glaring downside of that is we didn't build a good relationship with our other startups in our cohort because we never met each other. We were on Zoom all the time. And, after the Zoom session, everyone logged off, right? So there was no relationship building, and that's become very evident now after the program because the relationships aren't quite there.
Okay, so we did virtual as well. Virtual is good, but trust me, in person, it's always better because we are social beings. We connect more in person than whatever you think. And one thing I can tell you is, even when you're fundraising, an investor you sit with in person, you have a larger percentage of the person saying yes than when it's virtual. You understand? But also, for virtual experience, a lot of the mentors are able to give you honest feedback because there's no emotion to it too much. It's just a screen I'm following. I will drop it off after 20 minutes I spend with you. But anything, I always believe, physical always good. You make a lot of things happen in person because sometimes you grab lunch with just some people and you talk better. But also we are accepting and adjusting to the norm, which is now the virtual world. So also the virtual world give access to more Nigerian companies, as my people here rightly said, which is because immigration is a lot of issue now. Getting them to move you down to anywhere you are, maybe Canada, UK, it's a lot, especially when you're coming from Nigeria. Like it's just if you have green passport, Nigerian passport, it doesn't help the situation. But that means they will be able to now get more people into it. So there's advantage, there's disadvantage. But going forward, I think most of these programs are going in person back.
Yeah, I think there's a huge value in in-person, of course, that's lost in the virtual world. But yeah, they all have pros and cons. So thanks so much, guys. There was one more question about a team. We've spoken about teams a lot. So what makes a solid team? So just literally 1 minute from everybody as final word. What makes a solid team? Because we referenced it a lot.
I'll start. So I would say you need to have strong experience in the problem you're trying to solve. I think that's probably the key thing. To give you credibility right? And to get investors confident that you really understand the details of the challenges and the opportunity. And I think too, was mentioned earlier, just diversity of skill sets. There's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of things that you need to tackle. And so you need a team that can that have different skill sets that to bring to bear to the table, to solve problems and get things done rapidly.
Yeah, I would like to chime into that. Strong skill set in the area of the problem that you're trying to solve. And also, well, we're talking about, in this case, tech company that has to scale. You have to have a strong CTO. The industry you're trying to serve might not be a tech industry or primarily a tech-based industry that is currently transforming. So you need a strong CTO to be deep into the tech stack and developing the tech. Otherwise, you'll have to pay for that, which can drain the funds in the startup. And also, today now there's a lot of emphasis on graphics or just other areas that are important for you to. It's not just about the technology; it's also about marketing yourself. So you have to find whether a strong design person on your founding team. Otherwise, you'll have to pay for that as well. So that's just one example, but there are different areas. Identify the key areas that are important to your startup and try to get founding teams that have experience in those areas. So I'll say that's what's important.
So
awesome. Adewale, literally 1 minute, literally 1 minute. So we can
yeah. So for me, it's just complementary skills. You guys need to have complementary skills. And I think now with two different companies now, I have two different co-founders. So I can also tell you that you need to, when you're looking for co-founders, you need to get someone you can fight, you can disagree with, and that can disagree with you. But you guys can settle it without being too personal. So not someone that will say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, or someone that you won't be able to argue with. You need to, it's the most important thing. You guys have to fight when it's time to fight. So, and you don't know how to fight well, to disagree well.
I think NATO's gone again.
Oh, I think Dato's network.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm back. Okay. So thanks a lot, guys. Want to really appreciate the time and the volunteer to do this. Lots of huge nuggets dropped. I hope everybody took something out of it. We're gonna bring Tayo on for the fundraising piece. You guys are welcome to stay, of course, especially as my network is gonna keep doing this. So I'd love if you can stay on and provide some insights if you can. But we'll bring Tayo on. Who will be speaking on our fundraising panel. There are a couple of questions around fundraising in particular about meeting investors, etc. But let's get Tayo on and then we can have that conversation real in an in-depth manner. So thank you so much, Maurice, Olu, and Adewale, and you're welcome to stick around.
Thank you.
All right, Tayo.
Hey guys. Hi,
Hey.
Hi, Nathan. How's it going?
I'm good, thanks, man. How you doing?
Fine.
Yes.
Yeah, surviving. Hopefully the regulation doesn't get bigger than what we can bear.
Yeah. I think that's a whole other panel on its own for the future. Eh?
But otherwise, yeah, things are going well. How are things going on your end?
Good, really good. So thanks so much for agreeing to do this. We've had a great conversation with the other guys around getting to the program, what the experience was. And now one of the biggest things that concerns us, African startups is around fundraising. And you've done a great job over the years, with fundraising. So it'd be really great to hear from you, your experience and insights, and give us some advice on how best to approach this. So I guess we can start off by you introducing yourself and just telling us about your fundraising journey in particular, what you've raised and how that has been.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so let me start back. Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yes, we can hear you, loud and clear.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I'm Tayo, co-founder and CEO, currently CEO. Looking forward to switching that title at some point. At Max, what we do is, we're a mobility platform. We connect drivers to small businesses, consumers, anybody who needs logistics or transportation service. We've been focused on the two and three wheel categories, Okada and Keke, right? Expanding into cars shortly as well. But overall, that's what we do. A big part of our business model is access to finance, right? So we capture data from the drivers, non-financial data, and then we build credit scores out of that data, and on that basis, we determine who gets financing and who doesn't. So it's sort of like a fintech / mobility play now. But that's what we do at Max. We're still historically operational in Nigeria in about 5 states now, going to 6 now, and then looking to launch a new country, to launch a couple new countries this year. So that's a little bit about what Max does. In terms of fundraising journey, I don't know if I can say I've raised a lot of money, but yeah, it's been quite some experience over the years, and it's evolved, right? At different stages and phases of the company. So I'd start with our family and friends round, right? When we started Max, when we were still building the initial product, the MVP, we hadn't launched then. We raised I think just under 100K from family and friends, right? I don't add the third F, which they call fools, right? No, the investors are not fools. So from the family and friends round, we were able to raise 100K, and pretty much that phase just involved, talking to people in your network, your immediate network, right? And you're trying to convince them that what you're working on is exciting. It's it's a huge opportunity, it's a problem worth solving, etc., things like that. And the reality is it's also a test of your, it's a safe place to test your fundraising ability, because if you can't convince your friends, your family, and people, who have more than just, the business reason to invest in you, people are supposed to want you to succeed or be interested in your success. If you can't convince them, it might be a little hard, convincing people who don't know you from anywhere, right? So beyond the fact that it's easier to raise money from family and friends and people who already know you, it's also a way to test your own ability to actually convince people to, invest their hard-earned, money into your business. Obviously, you're not asking people to invest their life savings, right? Absolutely do not do that, which is why you ask a bunch of people. So if you're raising 5K from maybe 20 people, or whatever it is, so you're raising, maybe if you're raising 50K from someone who if they lose the 50K, it's not a big deal, then fine, right? But don't take 50K from someone whose life savings is not 50K, right? So we mentioned that generates about 100K family and friends from, what a lot of people would call even maybe pre-seed. I think that's what they call it now. And then we started building with that, right? And then we applied to Techstars, got into Techstars, which was great. Got some money to the Techstars program. And then after that, we raised a seed round, a proper seed round. That was about $1 million. Now, that's where it starts to get a bit more interesting because, at this point, you've moved beyond family and friends. Now you're in an accelerator program or whatever it is, or you're deeper into the tech community and you're starting to talk to angel investors who typically write anywhere between maybe 10 to 100K, broadly speaking. Some angels write a little bit more than 100K, but generally a lot of angels write somewhere between 25 and 50K checks. So at that phase, hopefully you've built an MVP. For some of us, maybe you've even launched, right? What those guys are always checking, is this potentially a really successful venture 3, 4, 5 years from now? Now, the challenge with angel investors is, a lot of angel investors is they think like the herd, right? So if one angel investor is excited about you, there's a good chance a lot of the other angel investors in that angel investors network would be excited about you, right? So typically, in terms of some of the strategies we used, sometimes founders make the mistake of trying to chase like 10 angel investors at the same time, which if you have the energy and the time to do that, yes, it makes sense. But more often than not, yes, you are trying to spread your outreach as much as possible. You should absolutely do that. But at the same time, your objective is to close 1 or 2 quickly, or at least get their commitment, right? So if you're able to particularly get an influential angel investor's commitment, that provides a really powerful springboard for you to convince the other angel investors. I think a lot of the mistake that founders make is they think that on the idea alone, you can convince an angel investor. The average angel investor out there, how do I choose my words carefully? The average angel investor out there is just looking for something to jump on that they think will make money. They don't care about your face. They don't care about anything, right? Which is why, the same startup before Techstars and after Techstars is able to quickly attract capital from angel investors. Practically nothing might have changed in the product, but it's more signaling that you've not gotten into Techstars or some other accelerator, right? So I think, especially for founders that are much more technical, they struggle a lot with recognizing that it's actually a sales job. Fundraising is sales, it's fundamentally sales. They're just trying to sell this idea to these people that you are the next big thing coming out of Africa. And it's a lot less about the product. I mean, okay, let's look at, say, a lending product. Lending products are pretty much all the same, right? Okay, there are nuances, or someone would you say, okay, I use this kind of data for my AI, whatever, right? Fundamentally, they're all the same. But the question then is, why would you succeed? Why would you become big, right? Why are you the one we should back amongst all the other lending or fintech startups out there? That's really the question that these angel investors are always asking in their heads. And the way they think about it is not entirely rational, right? So it then means you as a founder, you need to try and enter into the skin of the angel investor and evaluate yourself from the angel investor's eyes. When you do that, it makes it, you then begin to see your blind spots. It makes it much easier for you to recognize how to pitch yourself, and how to position yourself in the best possible way. Because once you get one, credible angel investor on board, right? Guess what? Every other angel investor you pitch, the first thing you tell them is, hey, I've got this angel investor on board, before you even talk about your product. Now, I'm not saying you should always do that. But yeah, in some way, the first thing you want to do is to establish and build your credibility with these guys. Because like I said, at pre-seed stage, at seed stage, more often than not, it's a lot less about the product and more about, okay, do these guys really have what it takes to succeed, right? Now, if you're like a second-time founder who's already built something, that in itself instantly gives you a lot of credibility. But for many of us who are sort of like first-time founders, or this is like the first real, tech startup you're doing, you have to recognize that is in itself a disadvantage. And you have to work extremely hard to get, your first angel investor. And once you do that, you can then build on that to get others in, and they can do multiple closings. So there are also a bunch of other tactics around things like, FOMO, right? Because angel investors, it's FOMO for every single one of them. If they feel like they're about to miss out on something, then they will jump on it. I mean, I have a friend, for example, who was introduced to another investor by this Nigerian angel investor. So he's a Nigerian founder, right? And his friend, who is an angel investor, they didn't invest in this company and said, whatever, nice. So, but I have some guys, let me introduce you to some guys in Japan or wherever, right? When he spoke to those foreigners and he got their commitment, he came back and told his Nigerian friend that introduced him to them that, Baba, thanks. So, thanks for this introduction. These guys have committed. He said, they've committed? I'm in that round. Reserve my own 10K, reserve my own 20K. And in my head, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. These people are crazy. But yeah, they are crazy, guys. So it's a game. And recognize that this thing is a game. Yeah, you are building product. That one is for you and your customers. Product is for you and your customers. For these investors, it's a game. And you have to completely understand how to play it. Now, moving on from there to Series A. Okay, so at Series A, you have to start showing a lot more metrics. It's still about the story. A lot of it is still about the story. But now you need metrics. You need to show that, okay, you're about to dominate the world. You start talking to a lot more institutional investors. You have to understand how to talk to them, how to engage them. Now, the point I will make with this key point I will make here is, I feel like, and this is especially for first-time founders as well. You see, at the end of the day, the metrics, you control your metrics. But what I mean by that is, think about it. It's kind of like if you are playing, if in football, when you're playing a home game, right? It's your pitch. You know the pitch dimensions better than anybody else. So even if you have weaker players, if you have weaker football players, you typically can still win on your pitch because it's your stadium, it's your fans, and you can condition the environment. When you're building your deck and you're pitching, it's yours. You control the narrative. You also control the metrics. Now, it doesn't mean you present, foolish metrics or metrics that don't make sense. But you present your metrics, not lie. Don't lie, right? Don't lie. But in this startup game, presenting yourself in the best possible light. For some very old school traditional founders, they feel like, oh, no, but this is a lie. No, it's not a lie. So for example, let me give an example of maybe you want to, if for example, maybe GMV is what really would make your company look big. There are companies that are processing huge amounts of GMV, but have close to zero revenue, right? So they're facilitating tons and tons of transactions, but their own money gone inside it is close to zero. So when you are pitching your metrics, of course, you don't talk about your revenue, you talk about your GMV. And then of course, they will ask you questions about your revenue, and you'll have a good answer for, our revenues at this level, right? But what we're doing right now is we are focused on driving transactions through the platform. Or let me give another practical example. Let's even say maybe your revenue, okay, let's say maybe your GMV is 100, right? And your revenue is actually 1. So you're taking 1 over 100, right? You can actually have an agreement with your customers and say, don't worry, let's sign an agreement that my revenue actually is 10, but I will give you 9 as rebates. You see what I mean? So your GMV is 100, your revenue is now, instead of 1, your revenue is now 10, but your marketing spend is 9. Now, you suddenly gone from revenue of 1 to revenue of 10. Now, all of these things are really important in terms of how you present your metrics. They are extremely, extremely important. So a lot of founders also are stuck in this kind of idea that I have to like achieve the impossible with the funding I have. But what's going on is that other people are telling much better and nicer stories than you, even though you technically are more productive than them, your current fields. This is what happens. They tell a better story than you, even though you've built a stronger company in terms of how it's performing, more money than you. So the money that they used, that they raise, they now come and use it to build a better product than you. Life is not fair. This life no balance. Just take it like that. So understand that your deck and your metrics are yours to control, and you should focus on presenting it, on presenting it in the best possible way without crossing the line. You know, there's people that will just complete outright lies. Don't join those people, right? Now, so with our Series A fundraising, you know, I mean, it was intense. We were fundamentally a platform connecting drivers to riders, right? But we got traction with an electric vehicle fund, or electric mobility decarbonization fund. And then we incorporated electric mobility into our play. Even though it was part of our original strategy, we hadn't emphasized it a lot at that point yet. So we incorporated that into our strategy, told a fantastic story about it, and I was able to get this investor that really just cared about the environment to commit to our Series A. And then once I had a term sheet from this investor, I then used that to negotiate with other investors, and then I got other term sheets. Eventually, the first term sheet I got was not the one I signed. But once you have one term sheet, that's great leverage. Once you have one committed investor, that's great leverage. Once you have one term sheet, that is great leverage to get other people on board, right? And eventually, we're able to get a bunch of other people on board and close our Series A, right? I've been raising our next venture round for a bit now, and I mean, I'm almost at the end of it, and it's never easy, right? You know, you raise before doesn't mean you can easily raise again, right? Especially now that what I'm raising is a B round. There's a lot of even much more focus on metrics. And of course, what did they ask me? The first thing they asked me is, how did you deal with Lagos Ban? How did you deal with Lagos? I'm so tired of dealing with regulation questions, right? But you have to be prepared, you know, for those questions, and you have to have really good answers, right? And I mean, we've done quite a decent job answering that question effectively and showing that it is not a problem for us going forward. But guess what? I got to a point where even some of my current existing investors, right? You know, I wish my investors were like Kuda. You know, Kuda is investors, the same investors, you know, backed him. Why can't you have investors like that back you through multiple rounds? And you have some investors will tell you, we like what you are doing, but we want to get a new investor first. We want to know what the market thinks of you. Crazy stuff. Like people say all kinds of crazy things, guys.
I'm the one leading, by the way, NATO's network is not working, so I'll be leading this conversation. And that's one of the questions I think I want to ask you, because right now, I know a lot of people here, you're going to your seed round, and the next thing is, okay, the investor. So for me, let me start with this. I run TechPoint, mostly bootstrap. At my pre-seed, it was oversubscribed because everybody believed in it. Like, okay, this is Adewale, so what is doing anything? I mean, so by the time we are now doing something that we now need more money from people, from investors, I realized like the major question becomes lead investors. I'll go and get a lead. And we got a lot of commitment. We got people that say, yeah, I'm giving you 500, 250, something like that. But some of them, this is their first time investing in Nigeria. So I know I reached out to you as well. You introduced me to some fantastic people and some of those things. But all I'm trying to say is, we told them like we're using a safe instrument. You don't need a lead. But most of them, this will be their first time investment in Nigeria. So when people are asking you for leads, and it's getting like everybody now, because you understand, there is a picture on social media whereby two women were pointing gun at each other like this. And that's how the game looks, because everybody just wants to know who is going to lead this round, and they just followed. So when you are in a situation whereby you don't have everybody, all the checks they are writing, it can be lead to that round, but nobody wants to drop. So what are you going to do in that situation for startup? What would you advise startups to do in that situation? And how do you think they can go around lead for the seed round?
That's a really great question, because we face the exact same dilemma. in our seed round. We had a lot of committed angel investors and micro institutions and a few even institutional funds, but they all wanted the lead, exactly the same problem. You know what I did? After I jumped around for a few months looking for lead, I said, these people are not serious. I went and met one of the angel investors that had committed, that was my best, that believed the most in what I was doing. You know what I did? I converted him into a lead investor. So I just went and told them, guys, we have a lead now. They said, who's the lead? They said, this person is the lead. And we have terms agreed and signed. Are you in or not? And I forced them to make a choice. And most of them eventually came in. So when I couldn't find a lead, guess what? I converted an angel investor into a lead, right? I just went and looked for standard documentation from my lawyers and all that. I said, okay, you come and lead this thing, my friend. We need to close this round and we need to move forward. We need to build a company here. But yes, finding a lead. So let's go back even to that question. When someone tells you go and find a lead, what they're telling you, what they're actually saying is this, because there's a lot of code language in the venture building, high growth venture building world. There's a lot of code language, and sometimes some of us struggle to interpret what some of those things actually mean. When someone says go and find a lead investor, what they're saying is this: I don't have the time to do the due diligence or to do the work to really understand what you're really doing. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let somebody else do that work that I respect. Once that person has done the work, then I will jump off the person's back. So investors like that also generally, if you need their money, of course you should take them. In fact, you should take their money, but don't think that those are people that are really backing you. Those people are just looking for a way to cash out on your success in the future. Because you see, someone who is backing you is not just about investing money, it's about really like believing in the mission of what you are doing. Someone who really believes in the mission of what you are doing will give you money at any time. Even if a syndicate is not fully ready, they will do a safe with you or a convertible or whatever it is. You see what I mean? So when people tell you go and find a lead, what they're really saying is, I think you have a big chance of succeeding, but I'm not willing to do the work. So let somebody else come and do the work. And when somebody else that I believe in has done the work, then I can back you. So either convert an angel investor into a lead, or the guys at Twigger, for example, what they used to do was, those guys are crazy. Most of the rounds they raise, they will prepare their documentation themselves and they will just send it to investors. Are you in or out? So they don't even do all this come and lead. They don't have time for that, right? But of course, those guys are they're big boys and all that. So, with your credibility, there's certain things that you can do. The more credible you become and the bigger your reputation gets, the more you can, get your way with these people. But yeah, if someone says go and find the lead, they're just telling you go and find, and leave them, no voila. Write their name down on the list, put them somewhere, right? Share updates with them maybe every month on how things are going, or every 2 weeks, and then go and actually look for a lead or someone that you can convert into a lead, and then come back and get those guys.
Okay, thank you. So on the fundraising as well, I think we have one of the speakers here. Is Soga here?
Yeah, Sugar is here. Sugar, how's it going?
Yes, I'm here. How's it going? It's been a while, Tayo. It's great to hear your voice again.
Congrats on all the moves. Well done.
Yeah. Congrats to you. How's it going?
Good.
So I think just you should introduce yourself, then we'll pick it from there.
It's great to be here. My name is Oluwaseun Gaoni. I'm the CEO, co-founder, MDAS Global. Tayo is our grandfather here. He's the first to do Techstars, and I saw Tayo did Techstars, and I'm like, damn, I can do it too. And so I did I did Techstars in Austin with Neto. Neto was a year after I did it. And it was a great experience for us. And just to give you a brief background with MDAS, we build and operate diagnostic facilities, and we want to become the biggest network of both physical diagnostic centers and healthcare facilities, and also virtual care. So that's what we do. It's been an interesting journey for us since we started. A fun fact: Tayo, MDAS came from the same class at MIT that Tayo's business came from the same class at MIT that my own business also came from. So it's really interesting. And we also shared an office space with Tayo too when we originally started. So we have a lot of commonalities. Yeah. But it's been an interesting journey, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So.
So we're talking about the fundraising journey. So what's the fundraising journey for you? What are your advice, especially from different stages? Let's say from pre-seed to seed round to, I mean, you guys just did your Series A.
Well, we'll call this seed extension. Nobody's
Seed extension. I like that. Different languages these
in
days.
different
Okay,
languages,
so
Yeah.
so
Uh,
what do you do? How did it work then?
yeah, so I think that fundraising is kind of interesting because there's both the science of it and the heart to it. And those are the two things you need to master. So the science of it is like, creating a pipeline, being able to follow up with people, making sure that you're targeting the right people, making sure that, you have the traction to fundraise, the best time to fundraise. That's like the science of it. The heart of it is like the narrative you have to tell about, and I think Tayo mentioned this too, the narrative you have to tell people as you build your company. And one thing that is also important is that this narrative will change as the business grows. And so, to be honest, at the early stages for our business, nobody really believed in what we're doing. So we couldn't fundraise. And so for us, it was just saying, okay, yes, people don't believe in us right now. We pretty much have to rely on mostly grants and just family, friends, and fools. But once we have the traction that we felt was bankable, we knew that yes, we could go out and fundraise. We had gotten some like solution market fit at that point, and we saw that the numbers were good. And then we also have to fundraising. There's a heart to it where you fundraise when you're we have that hockey stick. You really want to fundraise at the intersection of the hockey stick, really, where it could go anywhere. It could go really, really down, but you also could go really, really up, but nobody knows what. And so there's the heart to know, okay, this is the best time for me to fundraise. And I know that right now the market is really, really hot. Everybody wants to invest in Africa, particularly if you're a fintech founder, which is a great thing right now. One of the things that at least for us, is saying to what end are we fundraising? I feel like, and from my own conversations with a lot of founders, I feel like people don't understand that when they fundraise, they're actually selling their company. They just feel like investors money, let me fundraise at what terms? And so what is the end goal for the fundraise? And for you personally, what is the end goal 5 years from now? So for me, of course, I don't know if I'm going to do business, this being MDAS forever, but I know that I want to fundraise in such a way that if I need to exit at some point, that will be possible for me, And so that's something you should have in at the back of your mind too, is that like, what is the end goal in the future and how do I optimize for the future I want right now? And that's something I don't see enough of. So, but I think a lot of people here are probably still at the pre-seed, seed level. And at that point, it's making sure you have traction is probably very, very important. Creating a really amazing pipeline of people that have a track record, because during fundraising, people tend to waste a lot of your time. And then reaching out, having a system to reach out to these people, to screen them, to know who is serious or who is not, and to be able to really close quickly if you need to, either very safe, which is really easy these days, or if it's someone where you can get a lead, you should quickly try to close. And finally, involve lawyers. I can't say this enough. Many people have signed things that they didn't know they signed. I think for me, I've learned a lot about all kinds of risky terms, term sheet terms that I didn't know even the first round. So by the second time, I knew exactly what to do, particularly when you're doing an equity fundraise. So involving a great lawyer, you will pay a lot of money for lawyers, but it will save you a lot of headache in the future. So these are a few of my own pointers.
Okay, thank you so much. So Tayo and so guys, so there's a question I want to ask, because at time, I want you guys to look at this question, which is around when you are fundraising, because I know a lot of people here are going to fundraise and they are trying to fundraise no matter what. what's the best approach? You understand? Should you just use a cold email to investors? Should you just, what's the best approach to reach investors that you want to be part of your fund?
So from my own point of view, cold emails have not really worked out for me. And it's hard for it to work out for many people, just because a lot of investors tend to get a lot of emails from all kinds of people. So my preferred approach is just using people that can introduce you. Intros are so important for fundraising, I think. Cold emails can work, but that means you must have something, you must be able to write the email in a way that appeals to people, that will make them want to talk to you again. And that's even in its own art form that not many people have mastered. And so for me, I recommend at least most of my, it's so funny, my first, so Adventurous Platform was our very first institutional fundraise aside Techstars, investor aside Techstars. And the way we met them was, we went to an event that he invited me to. And from that event, I met a guy in that says, hey, I like what you guys are doing, you know, keep in touch with me. And then 2 months later, the guy introduced me to Kola and say, hey, Kola, this guy, I met him a while ago, you should talk to him. And 4 weeks later, Kola invested. So it wasn't like a straight, it was like this loop where a few people introduced us. But I feel like that's like having someone that all investors trust, can really make or break your deal. So I think doing the work to find someone that can introduce you to an investor would be really, really great. We've sent a lot of good cold demos before, and occasionally we'll still do, but it's not really just worked out. But we find that you know, that when we get intros to investors, people take they take us seriously more. But as you get bigger, obviously, if you send a cold email to an investor, then they tend to take you seriously. They know if they've heard about your name, obviously. But if you're just starting fresh, it's hard for them to do that. So that's my own approach. And I feel like you need to really create a pipeline and say, okay, I feel like people tend to like spray and pray. But for me, I would take a very empirical approach to things where we say, okay, these are the 100 people we have in our pipeline today. How many people am I going to reach out to? I'm going to reach out to 5 every day for 20 days in a row. And do the meetings, you know, and that way, you know, because you also tend to hear a lot of no's, very discouraging no's. Your first 20 touching base with investors might be a straight out no. And some no's are good, some no's are nice, some no's are not nice. Some no's are like, oh, you don't even know what you're doing. And then so you get discouraged. But when you have a system, then you just know that, okay, another day, another no, let's move, you know, and so.
Okay, thanks. Tayo, I learned you have to jump off soon. But one thing I want to ask is, how many investors should you pitch to close your round? How many? Should I just pitch to 5, 10? And they will
as many as needed.
Many, like just give a range.
As many as is needed to get the job done.
I know, but I mean, what are the range? What's the range like? Do you think 10 is okay if you pitch to 10 investors? It's just chill.
No, 10 is a joke. I mean, the numbers that you know, Sugar mentioned, right? You know, talking about 100, you know. So when you hear a number like 100, then you know that, okay, this stuff is in the hundreds, right? It's not in the tens. But I also 100% agree with Sugar that it's not spray and pray. You have to be very systematic and very, very, you know, pitching an investor is a really hard thing, because you have to, it's the same company, but you have to customize your message to every single investor, right? And as Sugar mentioned, I've never raised money from a cold email before. I've never, like it's never worked for me. Every single person has had to come from a referral or an introduction, right? And that is why. So as a matter of principle, sometimes they say that if someone doesn't invest in you, they are not the best person to introduce you to another investor. And it is right in many instances, because the first question they will ask that person is, you're introducing me to this startup. You yourself, why didn't you invest now? Why you introduce them to me? Except in cases where there's a very, very legitimate reason. So for example, if the investor is not authorized to invest in your sector, let's say they only do health tech, and you've gone through their portfolio, and you can find that they've actually only done health tech, and they like you, and they can introduce you to their friend that does logistics tech or fintech. That one accepts that introduction, right? But if you're a fintech and that investor has done 6 fintech investments and they didn't invest, don't let them introduce please. They're right, that would likely not work in your favor. So so the question then is, how do you build your network enough to the point where you can get a lot of interest? And there are a lot of tools out there today, like LinkedIn, obviously pay for premium LinkedIn, right? Get platforms like Signal, right?
Okay, I think
we lost
Tayo's
him.
network. Yeah, I think so. So.
And look through your. So the thing is, sometimes you need someone to introduce you to someone who will introduce you to the, or 3 middle links, one who can introduce you directly to the person you're trying to reach. Okay, so I think I'm saying is the summary of what nearly never work, maybe 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100. So you want to leverage. Now, one more thing before I finish saying this, the best person to introduce you to an investor is not another investor. The best person to introduce you to an investor is a founder. 150%. So if you want to meet investors, just look for all the founders, list all the founders in the ecosystem. You can cold email a founder, 100%. Cold email a founder. I mean, founder to founder, we understand the struggle. So forget all the announcements and all the stuff you see out there. We understand the struggle. A founder is 10 times more willing to help you than an investor. So talk to a founder and let the founder introduce you to the investors in their network. Now, the challenge is sometimes founders are typically very busy. So send the founder an email, meet up, then you tell them you want to see them, that they should give you a time if you're in the same city. See them, right, if you can, right? And then, build a relationship and then ask them for intros. We know how it is. So, except, most Nigerian founders are very, very friendly. Most African founders are really friendly. There are very few founders that are like, not crazy, but most people are friendly and they will. So take a list of all the founders look at the investors you're targeting, look at the founders they have invested in, and ask that founder to introduce you to that investor. That is the number one formula I would recommend. Yeah.
100%. So Tayo, if you want to leave now, I think we can actually excuse you. We'll just round up now. Thank you so much. I think you've given a lot of awesome insights. Thank you. And thanks for introducing us to some investors. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, if you need more, let me know. Just if you need more, let me know.
No problem. No problem.
All right, guys.
And just to build on what Tayo said, what I did when raising my rant after reaching out to some investors is I just reach out to founders, because lucky for me, I know a lot of founders in the market, and everyone was able to just say, oh, talk to this, and the investors are happy to take the question, happy to take the meeting, and also happy to follow up. One or even lead is just through another founder. So that's really good. And also what he said about another startup introducing you, the startup that they, I mean, a VC that didn't invest in you. I think one of the worst no email I got was from another VC that was like, oh yeah, we love what you guys are doing, but we can't come in now. And let me know what I can do. I said, oh, why not introduce us? And they introduced us, and the introduction was good. The other person wanted to take the meeting. All of a sudden, I just saw one mail from out of the blue saying, hey, the guy was a bit, he was trying to be cool, but he was really nasty. And I'm still going to really send them an email like, you don't talk to people like that. It's a bit even racist with what they did. So always go through the founders. That's what I'm saying. So from you, so the last question for you is, so guys, what do you think? I like where you are coming from at the beginning when you said people didn't believe in what you're doing, so you had to go through grants and some of these. So what is the advice to founders when you're pitching something and it looks like people are not buying into what you're pitching? It looks like you're just alone. What will you say? Because I see you guys went ahead and later you now raised, which is you've raised over $3 million. So what would be your advice to founders going through the same thing at the early stage, just taking a lot of no's, no's, no's? I know how bitter the no's can be.
Yeah, I think don't take it personally. That's one thing. Just don't take it personally. So for us, it was more, to be honest, I remember when I was raising money, I got a know where they said, hey, the guys in the email, I put the email on a PowerPoint and use it as my screenshot for like a year, like what they said in the note, which is that, well, these people don't have tech in their work, so we don't think they're going to go anywhere. So yeah, but that was a motivating factor for me, because I feel like, yeah, I want to prove you guys wrong, and we did. I think at least so far so good. But I feel like there's sometimes people I've seen people who I introduce people to my own investors too, that's something I love to do. But for me, I do a kind of pre-screening for people. If I look at your material and see that you're ready, I would say, hey, let's go, because I also want to be the source of good deals for my own investors, right? So that anytime I say, yeah, invest in this thing, it's like, oh, it's a banger, and I really happy when I introduce people to them, and then the conversations go forward. And I also do just general introductions too that are not like funding related. So
Okay.
one thing, yeah. But one thing to note though is that, like, at that early stage, you should know. One thing I see from a lot of the data I've received is that sometimes people are not ready to fundraise, and they're fundraising, and then people don't understand. When we do Techstars, they just break it down for you. Okay, this is what you need to do, but people don't understand. Like, okay, I need to have these data points that shows that I have predictable and growing revenue, to be able to really, really easily fundraise. And I see people that are still like building like products that, there's no traction point. There's still a lot of work to do, but they want to jump to fundraising. And for me, it's like, yeah, you can try to fundraise and hopefully find someone, but it might be a little bit difficult for you to fundraise. And so for us, I thought that that's what it was with us, that at that point,
Yeah.
earlier on, we were still figuring out what our business is really. And it was difficult for people the first business we had, which was mostly like a, leasing play for medical equipment, wasn't working. And it was obvious that it wasn't working. And nobody was going to give you money for a business that wasn't working. But once we figure out a right business model for us to work, that works, then it was actually an easier conversation. And so sometimes you need to spend more time building on your products. Sometimes it's not always like the investors are bad. Sometimes you have to look inward to say, okay, why am I not being able to raise money right now? It's because the product is not yet at the point where you need to raise money. And as you go, but when you get to that point where you have predictable and growing revenues, and you see like a lot of traction points around you, which is the best time. And if you still struggling to raise money and you have all these good data points around you, then most likely what it is that you're probably targeting the wrong folks. One of the things I've realized from being in this space and raising money and stuff is that there's money in this world. There is literally money in this world. I've been able to just raise money off of just one conversation with one person, $500,000, where the guy's like, oh, I like what you're doing. And it's like, oh, okay. Put me in for 500K. And I didn't think he meant it, but he actually really meant it, and he wrote the check. Easiest 500K I raised, Meanwhile, some who want to give you 50K, and they was like, oh, yeah, jump 7 times, 10 times, and you have to do it. So it's either, if your product is there, if you're ready, all signs point to fundraising, and you're not able to fundraise, that means you're targeting the wrong folks. So go look at, okay, who are the people investing in my sector, both home and abroad? Because sometimes some people don't invest in Africa, but they see you and you will be their first African investment. And so you want to make sure that you can fundraise that way, like both home and abroad. And for some people, I'm lucky enough and I'm very privileged that I have like global networks. Tire 2, to be honest, has global networks, and a lot of local founders might not have the global networks that we have because of the kind of schools we went to. And you have to rely on, say, local guys. My own advice for those people is just please involve a good lawyer. Don't sign things that you're signing your whole company away. There's no point going through this treacherous journey if you've signed half of your company away at your pre-seed level. It doesn't make any sense. So have people that have experience in these things help you know, is this a good day or not, or whatnot. So that's how I would just think through it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. So I think this is the end of it because of time. I think we've gone beyond the time scheduled. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Olu and Maurice. Thank you guys, and thanks everyone for attending. I hope you learned something. If you need any help, reach out to any of us on social media, on Twitter. People really reply on Twitter, or LinkedIn as well. So bye for now, I believe.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.